Hello, we are Group 18 to Pollution and Beyond. My name is Aidan McCormick.
My name is Richard Budd.
My name is Jared Etienne.
And my name is Amanda Marisi.
And our research question was, what is the environmental impact of the Starlink project? And the Starlink project is a project started by SpaceX that plans to launch 42,000 satellites into lower Earth orbit in order to provide internet access for remote parts of the Earth and places that do not have internet at the moment. And they'll be doing this with many launches of their Falcon 9 rocket every year for the next 20 years or so. And our initial hypothesis based on our research question was, with the increase of launches over the next 20 years, there will be a significant increase in the amount of pollution in the atmosphere, including pollution from alumina, black carbon, and CO2. And Amanda is going to be able to tell you more about this.
So the Starlink program comes with many concerns, such as what would these many satellites affect as they deteriorated in low Earth orbit? What would the launches of these satellites release into the atmosphere? The light pollution that would affect viewing the night sky and research back home, and many more. We decided to focus on the idea of how can such pollutants affect the atmosphere, particularly looking at carbon dioxide, alumina, hydrogen, and black carbon, in which we found alumina and black carbon to be the most effective for our atmosphere. And next, Richie is going to discuss the research that we have for projected radiative forcing and the effects that it could have on our global warming and our environment home.
Thank you. So like Aidan had said before, as part of this project, SpaceX wants to launch 42,000 satellites into lower Earth orbit, which is a very stark increase from the amount now. They only have about 1,000 satellites up there. And so we brought this out to the year 2037 because obviously they're at the starting point for this right now. And they're only doing a few launches a year to get this project going. But to get those 42,000 satellites, we had to look at the lifetime of the satellites and how many launches they're doing right now to figure out exactly how long that would take. And we figured out that after about 20 years, they would reach a rate where they're doing 175 launches a year in order to maintain those 42,000 satellites in the atmosphere. So what we did is we then looked at the specific emissions from each launch. We broke it into CO2, water vapor, and black carbon. Those are our three main pollutants. And so the CO2 makes up a majority of the pollution, as you can see on the cumulative emissions graph. That represents the total pollution that SpaceX has put out as part of this project. So carbon dioxide is the biggest one. It also has the longest lifetime in the atmosphere, so it's going to stay there a lot longer and kind of be easier to add up. The water vapor is the second biggest. I think it has a shorter lifespan than the carbon dioxide, but it's still very long compared to our last one, which is black carbon. That's basically the soot that's put out by the exhaust. And on the graph, you can't even really see it. It's about 3% of the emissions per launch. And it also has a 3-year lifetime in the atmosphere, so it gets out of there very quickly. And so this was surprising for the radiative forcing, which is basically a measure of how much each of these pollutants is going to heat up the atmosphere by. And so we found that the black carbon has the greatest radiative forcing out of all of them, even though it only makes up about 3% of the exhaust. You can barely see it there on the graph. It's the big yellow area in the RF graph. And so the water vapor and the carbon dioxide are very minimal in effect compared to that. And Jared can tell you more about that now.
Like Richard said, as a result of these launches, the black carbon, carbon dioxide, and alumina levels would increase by a great deal as a result of these launches. And that would result in a projected radiative forcing of 0.062 increase in our atmosphere. When we compare that to the airlines industry of 0.1 radiative forcing during the same time period, we find that the resulting pollution created by SpaceX's launches is not as significant as we initially thought, thus disproving our hypothesis. And we also found how much that would increase the Earth's temperature. It would be 0.039 degrees Celsius. Thank you for listening.